What a millionaire pretended to be a janitor to test his son's girlfriend, girl said. The crisp autumn air carried the aroma of sauteed garlic and freshly baked bread as Liam adjusted his collar nervously. He stood outside Lael Pook, the most prestigious restaurant in the city, its elegant facade gleaming under the soft glow of street lamps. Tonight was the night he'd introduced Samantha, his girlfriend of 8 months, to his father. His stomach churned with a mixture of excitement and dread. As he watched Samantha's taxi pull up, Liam's mind raced through all the possible outcomes of this evening. Would she be impressed? Disappointed? Would she see through the carefully constructed facade he'd built around his life? Samantha stepped out of the taxi, her emerald green dress shimmering under the restaurant's lights. Her eyes widened as she took in the opulent surroundings. Liam, she breathed, a smile spreading across her face. This place is incredible. Liam forced a smile, pushing down the guilt that threatened to bubble up. Only the best for you, Sam, he said, offering his arm. As they walked into the restaurant, the maitre d' greeted them with a polite nod. Reservation for Callahan, Liam said, his voice steady despite his biter's nerves. Of course, Mr. Callahan. Your father is already here. Please follow me. As they weaved through the tables, Samantha's eyes darted around, taking in the crystal chandeliers, the pristine white tablecloths, and the well-heeled diners. Liam could practically see the wheels turning in her head, estimating the cost of each item, each patron's net worth. They approached a table in the corner, and Liam's breath caught in his throat. There, dressed in a janitor's uniform, was his father, Henry. The older man's eyes crinkled with warmth as he stood to greet them, but Liam could see the calculated gleam behind the affectionate gesture. Dad, Liam said, his voice tight, this is Samantha. Henry extended a calloused hand, a kind smile on his weathered face. It's a pleasure to meet you, Samantha. I've heard so much about you. Samantha's smile faltered for a moment as she took in Henry's appearance, but she recovered quickly, taking his hand. It's wonderful to meet you too, Mr. Callahan. As they sat down, an uncomfortable silence settled over the table. Liam could feel the tension radiating from Samantha, her earlier excitement replaced by confusion and barely concealed disappointment. So, Mr. Callahan, Samantha began, her voice overly bright, Liam tells me you work here at Lael Pook? Henry nodded, his eyes twinkling. That's right, been keeping these floors clean for nigh on 20 years now. Samantha's smile became fixed, her knuckles white as she gripped her menu. Liam watched the interaction with a growing sense of unease. He knew this moment would come, had dreaded it for months, but seeing it unfold before him was more painful than he'd imagined. As the waiter approached to take their order, Liam caught sight of a familiar face at the bar. David, the restaurant manager, was watching their table with keen interest. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and David gave a slight nod before turning away. Little did Liam know that this dinner was just the beginning. The secrets, lies, and hidden agendas swirling around this table would soon collide, setting off a chain of events that would test the bonds of family, the limits of love, and the very foundations of everything he thought he knew. Liam's mind drifted to the past as he watched Samantha struggle to maintain her composure. The weight of his secrets pressed down on him, threatening to shatter the carefully constructed image he had built. 20 years earlier, on a rain-soaked night, Henry Callahan had found himself standing outside an orphanage. The sound of a child's cry pierced through the patter of raindrops, tugging at his heartstrings. That was the night Henry, a rising restaurateur, made a decision that would change his life forever. He adopted the crying child, a boy named Liam, whose parents had perished in a tragic car accident just days before. Growing up, Liam had always felt the shadow of his adoption looming over him. Despite Henry's unwavering love and support, a part of Liam always felt like an outsider, a misfit in the world of luxury and fine dining that his adoptive father inhabited. He would watch Henry move effortlessly among the elite, charming customers and business partners alike, and wonder if he would ever truly belong. As a teenager, Liam struggled to find his place, While his peers at the prestigious private school Henry sent him to boasted about their family legacies and trust funds, Liam kept quiet about his background. The fear of being seen as different, as less than, gnawed at him constantly. It was during these tumultuous years that Emily came into their lives. Henry, driven by the same compassion that led him to adopt Liam, took in his deceased friend's daughter. Emily, 3 younger than Liam, brought a ray of sunshine into their home. Her unbridled joy and acceptance of their unconventional family helped ease some of Liam's insecurities. Yet the doubt persisted. Liam threw himself into his studies and work at the restaurant, determined to prove his worth. He started as a dishwasher, much to the amusement of the regular patrons who knew him as the owner's son. But Liam was adamant about earning his place, working his way up through every position in the restaurant. Henry watched his son's relentless drive with a mixture of pride and concern. He recognized the fear of inadequacy that fueled Liam's actions, a fear he knew all too well from his own humble beginnings. But every time he tried to reassure Liam, to tell him that he was loved unconditionally, Liam would brush it off, unable to fully accept the words. As Liam grew into a young man, he began to take on more responsibilities at Lale Pook. His natural charm and hard-working nature made him popular among the staff and customers alike. But beneath the confident exterior, the old insecurities still simmered. Then came the day Liam met Samantha. She had walked into Lale Pook on a busy Friday night, her presence immediately commanding attention. Liam, who was managing the floor that evening, was instantly captivated. Samantha's beauty was undeniable, but it was her sharp wit and ambitious nature that truly drew him in. Their whirlwind romance was the stuff of fairy tales. Samantha was everything Liam thought he wanted, sophisticated, driven, and seemingly at ease in the world of luxury he had always felt slightly removed from. For the first time, Liam felt like he truly belonged. But with this newfound happiness came a new fear. Liam couldn't bring himself to tell Samantha about his adoption, about the years of self-doubt and struggle. He was terrified that if she knew the truth, she would see him differently, that the magic would disappear. So Liam constructed an elaborate facade. He spoke vaguely about his childhood, redirecting conversations whenever they veered too close to his past. He showered Samantha with expensive gifts and fancy dates, playing the part of the restaurant mogul's son to perfection. Henry watched this charade with growing unease. He saw the genuine affection between Liam and Samantha, but he also recognized the dangerous game his son was playing. He tried to broach the subject several times, but Liam always deflected, insisting that he knew what he was doing. As their relationship progressed, Liam found himself trapped in a web of his own making. Each lie, each omission, added another layer to the persona he had created. The guilt ate him, but the fear of losing Samantha was greater. The decision to introduce Samantha to Henry had been a source of anxiety for weeks. Liam knew he couldn't keep his 2 worlds separate forever, but he was desperate to maintain the illusion a little longer. When Henry suggested the dinner at Lale Pook, Liam saw an opportunity. If his father played the part of a simple janitor, perhaps Liam could gauge Samantha's reaction, see if she truly loved him for who he was, not for his perceived status. Now, sitting at the table with Samantha and Henry, Liam felt the weight of his decisions crushing him. He watched Samantha's eyes dart between him and his father, saw the confusion and disappointment she was trying to hide. But part of him wanted to stand up, to confess everything, to lay bare all his insecurities and fears. But another part, the part that had spent years carefully constructing this image, held him back. As Henry launched into a story about his early days at the restaurant, his eyes twinkling with hidden meaning, Liam caught Samantha stifling a yawn. The contrast between the woman he had fallen in love with and the one sitting before him now was stark. For the first time, doubt crept into his mind. Had he been so blinded by his own insecurities that he had missed seeing Samantha for who she truly was? The evening stretched on, each moment feeling like an eternity. Liam found himself at a crossroads, torn between the truth he had hidden for so long and the comfortable lie he had been living. As he looked around the restaurant at the world he had grown up in but never felt fully part of, Liam realized that the time for hiding was coming to an end. One way or another, the truth would come out. The only question was, would he be the one to reveal it, or would fate make that decision for him? As Samantha sat at the elegant table in Lale Pook, her mind wandered to the dusty streets of her childhood, a world away from the opulence surrounding her now. She had grown up in a small, dilapidated house on the outskirts of the city, where the sound of passing trains would rattle the windows at night. Her father, a factory worker, and her mother, a part-time cleaner, had struggled to make ends meet, often skipping meals to ensure Samantha had enough to eat. From an early age, Samantha had been acutely aware of the stark divide between the haves and the have-nots. She would press her nose against the windows of toy stores, dreaming of the dolls and games that were always just out of reach. At school, she wore hand-me-downs and carried her lunch in a worn paper bag, while her classmates flaunted their new clothes and shiny lunchboxes. A turning point came when Samantha was 12. Her mother fell ill, and the family's already precarious financial situation teetered on the brink of collapse. Watching her parents' desperation, Samantha made a vow to herself she would never be poor again. She threw herself into her studies with a fervor that surprised even her teachers. Every top grade, every academic achievement became a stepping stone towards her goal of a better life. As she grew older, Samantha's determination only intensified. She worked part-time jobs after school, saving every penny. Her friends would invite her to movies or shopping trips, but Samantha always declined, her eyes fixed on a future they couldn't see. While they dreamed of high school dances and first kisses, Samantha dreamed of corner offices and designer suits. Her hard work paid off when she secured a scholarship to a prestigious university. The day she left for college, Samantha looked back at her childhood home, a mix of emotions swirling within her. Her pride at how far she had come, determination to go even further, and a twinge of guilt at the relief she felt in leaving it all behind. University opened up a new world for Samantha. For the first time, she found herself surrounded by the wealth and privilege she had always envied. She observed her wealthy classmates carefully, noting how they spoke, dressed, and carried themselves. Slowly but surely, she began to transform herself, shedding the last vestiges of her working-class background. By the time she graduated, Samantha had reinvented herself entirely. She landed a job at a top financial firm, her natural intelligence and ruthless ambition quickly marking her as a rising star. She worked tirelessly, often being the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her colleagues marveled at her drive, unaware of the fear of poverty that constantly nipped at her heels. It was at a client dinner that Samantha first met Liam. She had been instantly drawn to his charm and the easy confidence with which he navigated the world of fine dining. When she learned he was connected to Lale Pook, one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city, Samantha saw an opportunity. Here was a man who could offer her entry into a world she had long aspired to join. As their relationship blossomed, Samantha found herself genuinely falling for Liam. His kindness and warmth touched a part of her she had long kept locked away. For the first time since childhood, she allowed herself to dream not just of success, but of happiness. Yet old habits die hard. Even as she reveled in her growing feelings for Liam, a part of Samantha couldn't help but calculate the advantages of their relationship. As she imagined a future of elegant dinner parties and vacations in exotic locales, a life where financial worries were a distant memory. Now, sitting across from Liam's father, a janitor, of all things, Samantha felt her carefully constructed world beginning to crumble. She struggled to reconcile the Liam she knew, the suave restaurateur's son, with this new reality. Had it all been a lie? The thought sent a chill down her spine. As Henry regaled them with another story about his years of mopping floors, Samantha felt a familiar panic rising within her. It was the same fear she had felt as a child, watching her mother count out coins to buy groceries. The fear of never having enough, of always being on the outside looking in. She glanced at Liam, searching his face for some explanation, some sign that this was all a misunderstanding. But his expression was unreadable, his eyes avoiding hers. Samantha felt a surge of anger. How dare he deceive her like this? Didn't he understand what was at stake? Yet even as these thoughts raced through her mind, another voice spoke up. A smaller, quieter voice that sounded remarkably like her younger self. It whispered of the genuine moments she and Liam had shared, the laughter, the deep conversations that had nothing to do with money or status. It reminded her of the warmth she felt when Liam looked at her, a warmth that had nothing to do with his perceived wealth. Samantha found herself at a crossroads. On one hand, there was the path she had been on for so long, the relentless pursuit of wealth and status, the need to prove to the world and to herself that she had risen above her humble beginnings. So on the other hand was a chance at genuine love and happiness, albeit without the guarantees of financial security she had always clung to. As the evening wore on, Samantha's inner turmoil intensified. She caught sight of her reflection in a nearby mirror, barely recognizing the polished, sophisticated woman staring back at her. How far she had come from the little girl in hand-me-downs. But at what cost? The arrival of the dessert menu jolted Samantha back to the present. Henry was asking her something about her favorite sweet treats, his kind eyes twinkling with genuine interest. For a moment, Samantha was transported back to her childhood kitchen, where despite their poverty, her mother had always managed to whip up simple, delicious desserts for special occasions. In that instant, a wave of shame washed over Samantha. What would her parents think if they could see her now, judging a man based solely on his occupation? They had raised her to value hard work and kindness above all else. When had she lost sight of those lessons? As she opened her mouth to respond to Henry, Samantha made a decision. She would give Liam a chance to explain, to show her who he truly was beyond the trappings of wealth she had assumed he possessed. And perhaps in doing so she might rediscover a part of herself she had long buried. Little did Samantha know that this decision would set in motion a series of events that would challenge everything she thought she knew about love, success, and what truly matters in life. As the evening drew to a close, the stage was set for revelations that would shake the foundations of not just her relationship with Liam, but her entire worldview. The soft clink of fine china and the muted conversations of other diners provided a soothing backdrop as Liam, Samantha, and Henry settled into their seats at Lael Pook. The tension at the table was palpable, a stark contrast to the elegant ambience of the restaurant. Liam cleared his throat, his fingers nervously adjusting his tie. "So, Dad," he began, his voice slightly strained, "why don't you tell Samantha about your work here?" Henry's eyes twinkled with a mix of mischief and wisdom. "Well, it's not the most glamorous job, but someone's got to keep this place sparkling clean." He chuckled, his calloused hands folded neatly on the pristine tablecloth. "Been doing it for decades now, and I've seen just about everything you can imagine in a place like this." Samantha's smile faltered slightly, but she quickly recovered. "That's fascinating, Mr. Callahan. It must be interesting to see all the different people who come through here." "Oh, you bet it is," Henry replied enthusiastically. "From celebrities to politicians, I've mopped up after them all. But you know what? At the end of the day, everyone's the same when it comes to making a mess." Liam watched the exchange with a growing sense of unease. He could see the confusion in Samantha's eyes, the slight furrow of her brow as she tried to reconcile this humble janitor with the wealthy father she had been expecting. As the waiter approached to take their order, Samantha seized the opportunity to change the subject. "Liam, darling, why don't you order for us? You know this menu better than anyone." Liam nodded, grateful for the momentary distraction. He ordered a selection of the restaurant's signature dishes, his voice steady and confident as he navigated the complex menu. It was a small reminder of the world he truly belonged to, a world that seemed increasingly distant as the evening progressed. As they waited for their appetizers, Henry regaled them with stories from his years at Lael Pook. He spoke of famous food critics who had dined incognito, of marriage proposals gone hilariously wrong, and of the time a renowned chef had a meltdown in the kitchen over a misplaced spice. Samantha listened politely, but Liam could see her growing discomfort. Her eyes darted around the restaurant, taking in the opulent surroundings that now seemed at odds with their dinner companion. He knew he should say something, explain the situation, but the words caught in his throat every time he tried. The appetizers arrived, a stunning array of culinary artistry that momentarily distracted from the underlying tension. As they began to eat, Samantha made a valiant effort to engage Henry in conversation. "Mr. Callahan," she began, her voice overly bright, "Liam has told me so much about his childhood. It must have been wonderful raising him in such a unique environment." Henry's eyes met Liam's for a brief moment, a silent communication passing between them. "Oh, it was something special, all right," Henry replied, his voice warm with genuine affection. Liam was always a curious kid, always wanting to learn every aspect of the restaurant business. Started him off young, wiping tables and folding napkins. Liam felt a rush of conflicting emotions. Pride at his father's words, shame at the deception, and fear of Samantha's reaction all warred within him. Is Samantha's fork paused midway to her mouth? "Wiping tables," she echoed, her tone a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "Best way to learn the business from the ground up," Henry said with a nod. "Can't expect to run a place like this if you don't know every job inside and out." The implications of Henry's words hung in the air. Samantha's gaze snapped to Liam, questions burning in her eyes. Liam opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The arrival of the main course provided a brief respite from the growing tension. The waiter presented each dish with a flourish, describing the intricate preparations and exotic ingredients. In any other circumstance, it would have been a meal to remember. As they ate, the conversation became stilted, with long pauses punctuated by attempts at small talk. Liam could feel Samantha withdrawing, her responses becoming shorter and more clipped. He wanted to reach out to her, to explain everything, but the weight of his deception held him back. Henry, seemingly oblivious to the undercurrents of tension, continued to chat amiably. He spoke of his pride in Liam's accomplishments, of the hard work and dedication it took to succeed in the restaurant business. With each word, Liam saw Samantha's expression grow more confused and troubled. As the meal drew to a close, Samantha excused herself to use the restroom. The moment she was out of earshot, Liam turned to his father, his voice low and urgent. "Dad, what are you doing? This isn't what we discussed." Henry's expression turned serious. "Son, I know you think you're protecting yourself, but lies have a way of unraveling. It's time to be honest with Samantha and with yourself." Liam ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every movement. "You don't understand. She'll leave if she knows the truth. I can't lose her." Henry reached across the table, placing a weathered hand on Liam's. "If she leaves because of who you really are, then she's not the one for you. You deserve someone who loves you for you, not for some image you've created." Before Liam could respond, Samantha returned to the table. Her eyes were slightly red, and Liam could see she had been crying. A wave of guilt washed over him. "Samantha," he began, his voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to tell you." But Samantha held up a hand, stopping him. "No, Liam, I think I've heard enough." Her voice was cold, a stark contrast to usual warmth. "I came here tonight expecting to meet a successful businessman, someone who could offer me the life I've always dreamed of. Instead, I find out that everything has been a lie." Liam felt his world crumbling around him. "Sam, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Samantha interrupted, her voice rising. "How you've been deceiving me for months. How you let me believe you are something you're not? God, Liam, do you have any idea how humiliating this is?" Henry tried to intervene. "Now, Samantha, I think you might be jumping to conclusions." Samantha was beyond listening. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "I can't believe I wasted so much time with you, Liam. I thought you were different, special. but you're just like every other guy who's tried to take advantage of me." Liam stood as well, reaching for a hand. "Samantha, please, I love you. This doesn't change anything between us." Samantha yanked her hand away. "It changes everything, Liam. How can I trust anything you say now?" With that, she turned and stormed out of the restaurant, leaving Liam standing there, stunned and heartbroken. The other diners watched the scene unfold with a mixture of curiosity and discomfort. Henry slowly rose from his seat, placing a comforting hand on Liam's shoulder. "I'm sorry, son. I know this isn't how you wanted things to go." Liam shrugged off his father's hand, anger replacing his shock. "This is your fault," he spat. "If you had just played along, if you had been who she expected you to be, none of this would have happened." Henry's expression hardened. "No, Liam, this is the result of your choices, your lies. It's time you faced the consequences of your actions." Thus father and son stood there, the weight of years of unspoken truths and hidden insecurities hanging between them. Neither noticed the figure watching from the bar. David, the restaurant manager, observed the scene with keen interest, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The evening's drama had set in motion events that would change all their lives forever. In the days that followed, Liam's world seemed to collapse around him. Samantha wouldn't return his calls or messages. He threw himself into his work at the restaurant, but even that brought little comfort. Every corner of Lalpook held memories of Samantha, of the life he had imagined for them. Henry tried to reach out to his son to offer comfort and guidance, but Liam pushed him away. The rift between them, always present but usually unacknowledged, now seemed wider than ever. As Liam grappled with the fallout of his deception, he was unaware of the larger forces at play. The truth about his adoption, the secrets Henry had kept for years, and David's hidden agenda were all about to collide in ways none of them could have anticipated. The dinner at Lalpook had been just the beginning of a journey that would test the bonds of family, the power of love, and the strength of the human spirit. As the dust settled from the disastrous dinner, Henry Callahan retreated to his private office at Lalpook, a room hidden behind an unassuming door marked maintenance. He sank into his leather chair, the weight of the evening's events heavy on his shoulders. The facade he had maintained for years had crumbled in a matter of hours, and the consequences were only beginning to unfold. Henry's mind wandered back to the day he had conceived this elaborate plan. It was shortly after Liam had introduced him to Samantha, gushing about her ambition and sophistication. Henry had seen the spark in his son's eyes, but he had also recognized a familiar desperation, the need to prove oneself, to be seen as worthy. It was a feeling Henry knew all too well from his own past. So with a heavy sigh, Henry reached for a framed photograph on his desk. It showed a much younger version of himself, standing proudly in front of a small, rundown diner. That diner had been the seed from which Lalpook had grown, a reminder of how far he had come. Success had taught Henry a valuable lesson. True character is revealed not in times of prosperity, but in moments of adversity. It was this lesson that had prompted Henry to devise his janitor disguise. He wanted to test Samantha, yes, but more importantly, he wanted to show Liam that love and respect shouldn't be contingent on wealth or status. He had hoped that by presenting himself as a humble janitor, he could teach his son the value of authenticity and the danger of building relationships on false pretenses. A soft knock on the door interrupted Henry's reflections. "Come in," he called out, quickly slipping back into his role as the affable janitor. David, the restaurant manager, entered the office. His usual polite smile was replaced by a look of concern. "Mr. Callahan, I hope I'm not interrupting." Henry waved him in, curious about the young man's unusual demeanor. David had always been efficient and respectful, but there was something different about him tonight. "What's on your mind, son?" David hesitated for a moment before speaking. "Sir, I couldn't help but overhear the situation with Liam and his girlfriend earlier. I wanted to make sure everything was all right." Henry studied David carefully. There was genuine concern in his voice, but also something else, a glimmer of interest that seemed out of place. "Everything's fine, David, just a family matter. Nothing for you to worry about." David nodded, but didn't move to leave. Instead, he took a step closer, his voice lowering. "Mr. Callahan, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but I've worked here for 5 years now. I've seen you come in early, leave late, always in that janitor's uniform. But I've also seen how the staff defer to you, how you seem to know every aspect of this restaurant intimately." Henry felt a flicker of unease. He had always been careful, but David was observant, more observant than he had given him credit for. "What are you getting at, David?" "I think I've figured it out, sir," David said, a hint of triumph in his voice. "You're not really a janitor, are you? You're the owner of Lale Pook." For a moment, Henry considered denying it, maintaining the charade, but something in David's earnest expression made him reconsider. Perhaps it was time for some truth. "You're a sharp one, David. Yes, you're right. I am the owner." David's face lit up with a mixture of excitement and vindication. "I knew it! But sir, why the deception? Why pretend to be a janitor in your own restaurant?" Henry leaned back in his chair, regarding David thoughtfully. "Sometimes, David, the view from the bottom tells you more about your business, and the people in it, than you could ever see from the top." As he spoke, Henry noticed a strange flicker in David's eyes. It was brief but unmistakable, a look of recognition quickly masked. Henry's instincts, honed over years in the cutthroat restaurant business, prickled with warning. "Is there something else on your mind, David?" Henry probed gently. David hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. "Actually, sir, there is. I've been working on some ideas to expand Lale Pook. New marketing strategies, potential locations for new branches. I'd love the opportunity to discuss them with you." Henry nodded slowly, his mind racing. David's sudden interest in the restaurant's future, coupled with that strange look of recognition, set off alarm bells. "I appreciate your initiative, David. Why don't you put together a proposal and we can discuss it next week?" David's face fell slightly at the delay, but he quickly recovered. "Of course, Mr. Callahan. I'll have it ready for you." As David left the office, Henry's unease grew. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his manager than met the eye. In making a mental note to look into David's background more thoroughly, Henry turned his attention back to the more pressing matter at hand, his son. Liam had stormed out of the restaurant shortly after Samantha, ignoring Henry's attempts to explain. The hurt and betrayal in his son's eyes had cut Henry deeply. He had wanted to teach Liam a lesson about authenticity, but had he gone too far? Henry picked up his phone, hesitating for a moment before dialing Liam's number. It went straight to voicemail. "Liam, it's Dad," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I know you're angry and you have every right to be, but please give me a chance to explain. There's so much you don't know, son, about me, about our family. It's time I told you the whole truth." As he hung up, Henry's gaze fell on another photograph on his desk. This one showed Liam as a child, grinning widely as he stood in the Lale Pook kitchen, a too large chef's hat perched precariously on his head. The innocence and joy in that image were a far cry from the anger and hurt he had seen in Liam's eyes tonight. Henry knew that the road ahead would be difficult. Rebuilding trust with Liam, dealing with whatever David was planning, and navigating the fallout from tonight's revelations would require all of his strength and wisdom. But as he looked at the photo of young Liam, Henry felt a renewed sense of determination. He had built Lale Pook from nothing, turning a rundown diner into one of the city's most prestigious restaurants. He had faced countless challenges along the way, but none as important as this. This wasn't just about his business or his legacy, it was about his family, about the son he loved more than anything in the world. As Henry stood to leave his office, he made a silent vow. He would make things right with Liam no matter what it took. He would uncover whatever secrets David was hiding, and he would ensure that the truth, the whole truth, finally came to light. Little did Henry know that the events set in motion that night would lead to revelations far beyond anything he could have imagined, shaking the foundations of everything he had built and testing the bonds of family in ways he never thought possible. As the story of the Callahan family continues to unfold, dear reader, we find ourselves on the edge of our seats, eager to discover what lies ahead for Liam Henry and the mysteries surrounding Lael Pook. The tension builds, secrets simmer beneath the surface, and we can't help but wonder what revelations await us in the next chapter. And if you've been captivated by the twists and turns of this tale, if you found yourself invested in the complex relationships and hidden agendas, why not ensure you never miss a moment? By subscribing to our channel, you'll be the first to know when the next part of this gripping saga is revealed. We don't let the story end here. Join our community of passionate readers and storytellers. Together we'll unravel the mysteries, celebrate the triumphs, and weather the storms alongside the Callahan family. Subscribe now and let's continue this journey together. After all, in the world of Lael Pook, who knows what might happen next? The cool night air hit Samantha's face as she burst out of Lael Pook, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her mind was reeling, trying to process the events of the evening. The man she thought she knew, the future she had imagined, all of it had crumbled in a matter of hours. She hailed a taxi, her hand shaking as she gave the driver her address. As the city lights blurred past the window, Samantha's shock slowly gave way to anger. How dare Liam deceive her like this? How could he have let her believe he was something he wasn't? Back in her apartment, Samantha kicked off her heels and collapsed onto her couch. She reached for her phone, ready to call her best friend and vent about the disastrous evening. But as her finger hovered over the call button, she hesitated. How could she explain this situation without revealing her own motivations? Instead, she found herself scrolling through her photos, lingering on images of her and Liam. Their first date at that quaint little cafe, a weekend getaway to the coast, countless dinners at upscale restaurants. In every picture, Liam's smile was genuine, his eyes filled with warmth. Had it all been an act? A notification popped up on her screen, a missed call from Liam. Samantha's heart clenched. Part of her wanted to call him back, to demand an explanation, but a larger part, the part still reeling from the humiliation of the evening, couldn't bear to hear his voice. As she tossed her phone aside, her gaze fell on the designer handbag Liam had given her for her birthday. It sat on her dresser, a symbol of the life she had thought was within her grasp. Now it felt like a mockery of her dreams. Samantha's mind wandered back to her childhood, to the promises she had made to herself. Never to be poor again, never to feel that gnawing uncertainty of not knowing where the next meal would come from. She had worked so hard, sacrificed so much, to climb out of that life. And now, just when she thought she had finally made it, it all turned out to be a mirage. The knock at the door startled her out of her reverie. For a moment, her heart leapt, thinking it might be Liam. But when she opened the door, she found Hannah, her colleague from work, standing there with a bottle of wine and a sympathetic smile. "Thought you might need this," Hannah said, holding up the bottle. "Bad date?" Samantha hesitated for a moment before stepping aside to let her in. She hadn't been particularly close to Hannah, but right now, the thought of being alone with her tumultuous thoughts was unbearable. As they settled on the couch, glasses of wine in hand, Samantha found herself pouring out the whole story. Hannah listened attentively, her expression a mixture of shock and sympathy. "I can't believe he would do that to you," Hannah said when Samantha finished. "You deserve so much better, Sam." Samantha took a long sip of the wine. "I just feel so stupid. I should have seen through it." Hannah leaned forward, her eyes glinting with a sudden intensity. "You know what you need. A distraction, and I think I have just the thing." She pulled out her phone, scrolling through it before showing Samantha a social media post. It was an advertisement for an exclusive networking event at a high-end club downtown. "It's tomorrow night," Hannah explained. "I have an extra ticket. It'll be full of successful businessmen, entrepreneurs, you name it. The perfect place to forget about Liam and maybe meet someone who's actually worth your time." Samantha hesitated. The thought of putting herself out there so soon after the disaster with Liam made her stomach churn. But as she looked around her apartment, at all the reminders of the life she had thought she was building with him, A wave of determination washed over her. "You know what? You're right," Samantha said, straightening her shoulders. "I'm not going to let Liam's lies hold me back. I'm in." Hannah's face lit up with a grin. "That's the spirit. Trust me, by this time tomorrow, you'll have forgotten all about Liam and his janitor dad." As Hannah left, promising to pick Samantha up the following evening, a new sense of purpose filled Samantha. She had let herself get sidetracked by Liam's charm, had allowed herself to believe in a fairy tale. But no more. From now on, she would keep her eyes on the prize. No more distractions, no more settling for less than she deserved. The next evening found Samantha and Hannah entering the glittering world of Club Luxe. The venue was a testament to opulence, with crystal chandeliers, plush velvet seating, and champagne flowing freely. Samantha felt a familiar thrill as she took in the well-dressed crowd, the air thick with the scent of expensive perfumes and the promise of opportunity. "There's someone I want you to meet," Hannah said, guiding Samantha through the crowd. They approached a group of men engaged in animated conversation. One of them, a tall, distinguished-looking man in his 40s, turned to greet them. "Samantha, this is David," Hannah introduced. "He's the manager at Lale Pook." Samantha's heart skipped a beat at the mention of the restaurant, but she forced a smile. "Nice to meet you, David." David's eyes lit up with recognition. "Ah, Samantha, I believe I saw you at the restaurant last night. You were dining with Liam Callahan, weren't you?" Samantha felt her cheeks flush. Yes, I was, but that's over now." A look of intrigue passed over David's face. "I see. Well, perhaps everything happens for a reason. Why don't we get a drink and you can tell me all about it?" As David led her to the bar, Samantha couldn't help but feel a spark of excitement. Here was someone who was actually part of the world she aspired to, someone who could potentially open doors for her. Over drinks, Samantha found herself opening up to David. He was an attentive listener, asking thoughtful questions and offering sympathetic nods at all the right moments. As the evening wore on, Samantha felt herself relaxing, the pain of Liam's betrayal fading into the background. "You know," David said, leaning in conspiratorially, "Lale Pook isn't just a restaurant. It's an institution in this city. And between you and me, there are big changes coming." Samantha's interest was piqued. What kind of changes? David's eyes gleamed with excitement. Expansion plans, new locations. We're talking about taking Lale Pook national, maybe even international. As David painted a picture of the restaurant's ambitious future, Samantha felt a familiar hunger stirring within her. This was the world she had always dreamed of being a part of. And here was David, offering her a glimpse behind the curtain. "It sounds incredible," Samantha said, her voice filled with genuine admiration. "You must be very proud to be a part of it." David smiled, a hint of something unreadable in his eyes. "I am. And who knows? Maybe there's a place for someone like you in Lale Pook's future." As the night wore on, Samantha found herself increasingly drawn to David. He represented everything she had thought she was getting with Liam, but without the deception. Here was a man who was upfront about his position, his ambitions, his place in the world she so desperately wanted to be a part of. By the time they exchanged numbers at the end of the evening, Samantha felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe losing Liam wasn't the end of her dreams. Maybe it was just the beginning of something even better. Little did Samantha know that her encounter with David was about to set in motion a chain of events that would not only change her life, but would shake the very foundations of Lale Pook and the Callahan family. As she hailed a taxi home, her mind buzzing with possibilities, the wheels of fate were already turning, drawing her deeper into a web of secrets and ambitions that would test her in ways she could never have imagined. The Callahan household was uncharacteristically quiet as Liam trudged down the stairs, his eyes heavy from a restless night. The events of the disastrous dinner at Lale Pook still weighed heavily on his mind. As he entered the kitchen, he found Henry already there, nursing a cup of coffee and staring pensively out the window. "So morning, son," Henry said softly, his voice lacking its usual cheerful tone. Liam grunted in response, making his way to the coffee pot. The silence between them was thick with unspoken words and lingering tension. As Liam poured his coffee, a sudden commotion from the living room broke the uneasy quiet. Emily, Liam's younger sister, stumbled in, her face pale and her breathing laboured. Liam rushed to her side, catching her just as her knees buckled. "What's wrong?" Henry was there in an instant, helping Liam guide Emily to a chair. "Emily, sweetheart, talk to us. What's happening?" Emily's voice was weak as she spoke. I don't feel right. My chest hurts and I can't catch my breath." The brothers exchanged a worried glance. Emily had always been the picture of health, her vibrant energy a constant in their lives. Seeing her like this sent a chill down Liam's spine. "We need to get her to a hospital," Henry said, his voice firm with barely concealed panic. "Liam, grab her coat. I'll bring the car around." The drive to the hospital was a blur of worried silence and Emily's laboured breathing. Liam held his sister's hand tightly, silently willing her to be okay. As they rushed through the emergency room doors, Liam couldn't help but think how quickly life could change. Just yesterday, his biggest worry had been Samantha's reaction to their family's true circumstances. Now, none of that seemed to matter. Hours passed in the sterile waiting room, each tick of the clock amplifying their anxiety. Finally, a doctor approached them, her face grave. "Mr. Callahan," she addressed Henry, "I'm Dr. Patel. We've run some tests on Emily and I'm afraid I have some concerning news." Liam felt his heart drop as Dr. Patel explained Emily's condition. A rare heart defect, previously undetected, was causing her heart to fail. Without immediate intervention and ongoing treatment, Emily's prognosis was grim. "What kind of treatment are we talking about?" Henry asked, his voice steady despite the fear evident in his eyes. Dr. Patel's response hit them like a physical blow. A series of complex surgeries followed by a regimen of expensive medications and therapies. The cost would be astronomical, far beyond what their insurance would cover. As the doctor left them to process the information, Liam saw his father age years in a matter of moments. Henry slumped in his chair, his head in his hands. "Dad," Liam's voice was soft, uncertain, "what are we going to do?" Henry looked up, his eyes filled with a determination Liam had never seen before. "Whatever we have to, son, we're going to save your sister." The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Liam took charge of the day-to-day operations at Lale Pook, allowing Henry to focus on Emily's care and navigating the labyrinth of medical bureaucracy. The restaurant became Liam's refuge, a place where he could lose himself in work and momentarily forget the crisis looming over his family. It was during a rare quiet moment in the office that Liam overheard a conversation that would change everything. David, the restaurant manager, was on the phone, his voice low and urgent. "Yes, everything's proceeding as planned," David was saying. "The old man's distracted with his daughter's illness. It's the perfect time to make our move." Liam felt his blood run cold. He listened intently as David continued, outlining what sounded like a plan to take control of Lale Pook. Names were mentioned: investors, lawyers, even a member of the city council. It was clear that this was no spur-of-the-moment scheme, but a carefully orchestrated plot that had been in the works for some time. As David ended the call, Liam quietly slipped away, his mind racing. He needed to tell his father, but with Emily's condition, he was reluctant to add to Henry's burdens. And then there was the question of proof. It was his word against David's and David's and been a trusted employee for years. Liam's thoughts were interrupted by the buzz of his phone. It was a text from Samantha: "We need to talk. Meet me at our spot in an hour." For a moment, Liam hesitated. With everything going on, did he really have time for this? But something in Samantha's message urged him to go. Perhaps, in the face of his family's crisis, he could find a way to make things right with her. An hour later, Liam found himself at the small park where he and Samantha had shared their first kiss. She was already there, pacing nervously near the old oak tree that had been their favorite spot. "Sam," Liam called out softly as he approached. Samantha turned, her expression a mix of emotions Liam couldn't quite decipher. "Liam, I've been thinking a lot about what happened at the restaurant." Liam felt a glimmer of hope. "Sam, I'm so sorry. I know I should have been honest with you from the start. I was just afraid." "Afraid of what?" Samantha interrupted, her voice sharp. "That I wouldn't want you if I knew the truth? And that I was only interested in your money?" The accusation hung in the air between them. Liam opened his mouth to respond, but Samantha held up a hand to stop him. "I've met someone," she said, her words hitting Liam like a physical blow. "Someone who's been honest with me from the start. Someone who sees my potential and wants to help me achieve my dreams." "Who?" Liam managed to ask, though he feared he already knew the answer. "David," Samantha replied, her chin lifting defiantly. "He's shown me what Lael Pook could be, what I could be as part of it. He's offering me a future, Liam, a real future, not built on lies." Liam felt as though the ground was shifting beneath his feet. David's phone conversation, Samantha's words, Emily's illness, it all swirled together in a dizzying vortex of betrayal and fear. "Sam, you don't understand," Liam began, desperate to make her see the danger. "David isn't who you think he is. He's planning something that could destroy everything my family has built." But Samantha was already shaking her head, backing away. "I'm sorry, Liam, I can't trust anything you say anymore. It's over between us. I hope you find what you're looking for." As Samantha walked away, Liam felt a profound sense of loss, not just for the relationship that had ended, but for the innocence of a time when his biggest worry had been maintaining a facade of wealth. Now, with his sister's life hanging a balance and a threat looming over his family's legacy, Liam realized that he had been playing at adulthood all this time. The real challenges, the real tests of his character were only just beginning. With a heavy heart but a newfound resolve, Liam turned and headed back towards Lael Pook. It was time to tell his father everything. Whatever storms were coming, they would face them as a family. And perhaps in weathering those storms, Liam would finally become the man he had always pretended to be. Liam's footsteps echoed through the empty corridors of Lael Pook as he made his way to his father's office. The weight of the revelations he had uncovered pressed heavily on his shoulders. As he approached the door, he could hear his father's muffled voice, engaged in what sounded like an intense phone conversation. Hesitating for a moment, Liam took a deep breath before knocking. The conversation inside abruptly ceased, and Henry's tired voice called out, "Come in." As Liam entered, he was struck by the sight of his father. Henry looked older than Liam had ever seen him, the lines on his face deepened by worry and exhaustion. Scattered across the desk were medical bills and insurance forms, a stark reminder of the crisis they were facing. "Liam," Henry said, his voice softening slightly. "What is it, son?" For a moment, Liam faltered. How could he add to his father's burdens? But the memory of David's phone conversation steeled his resolve. "Dad, there's something you need to know. It's about David." Henry's brow furrowed as Liam recounted what he had overheard. As he spoke, he saw a range of emotions flicker across his father's face: surprise, anger, and finally a grim determination. "But you should have seen this coming," Henry muttered, more to himself than to Liam. "I've been so focused on Emily, I've let my guard down." "What do you mean, Dad?" Liam asked, confusion evident in his voice. Henry sighed heavily, leaning back in his chair. "It's time I told you the whole truth, Liam. About David, about our family, about everything." Even the next hour, Liam listened in stunned silence as his father unraveled a tale that seemed more suited to a crime novel than their family history. David, it turned out, was not just an ambitious employee, but Henry's long-lost brother. "Your uncle," Henry explained, his voice tinged with regret, "was always the more ruthless of the two of us. When we started Lael Pook together, he wanted to cut corners, make quick money. I wanted to build something lasting, something we could be proud of." The disagreement had led to a bitter falling out. David had left, vowing to build his own empire. For years, Henry had heard nothing from his brother. Then, 5 years ago, David had reappeared, seemingly a changed man, asking for a job at Lealpook. "I thought he had changed," Henry said, shaking his head. "I thought this was our chance to reconcile, to be a family again. I never imagined he was playing the long game, waiting for the right moment to take everything we've built." Liam's mind reeled as he processed this information. But why now? Why make his move when we're already dealing with Emily's illness? A dark look crossed Henry's face, because he knows we're vulnerable. The medical bills, the cost of Emily's treatment, it's stretching our resources to the limit. He probably thinks this is his best chance to force us to sell. As the implications of this sank in, Liam felt a surge of anger. "We can't let him get away with this, Dad. There must be something we can do." Henry nodded slowly. "There is, but it's risky. I've been working on a plan, but I needed more time. With David making his move now, we'll have to accelerate things." He pulled out a folder from his desk drawer, spreading out a series of documents. Liam leaned in, his eyes widening as he realized what he was looking at. It was a detailed plan for expansion, not just of Lealpook, but of an entire restaurant group. "This is incredible, Dad," Liam breathed. "But how can we possibly fund this when we're already struggling with Emily's medical bills?" A small smile played at the corners of Henry's mouth. "That's where you come in, son. I need you to go to New York. There's an investor there, an old friend of mine. He's been interested in partnering with us for years, but I've always held back. Now we don't have a choice. We need his capital to save Lealpook and to ensure we can take care of Emily." Liam felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. "You want me to handle this, Dad? Are you sure? This is huge." Henry reached across the desk, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. You're ready for this, Liam. You've always been Reedy. It's time for you to step up and take your place in this family, in this business." As father and son began to dive into the details of the plan, neither noticed the shadow that briefly passed by the office door. Outside, David stood frozen, his ear pressed against the wall. His face twisted into a mask of fury as he realized his carefully laid plans were in jeopardy. As silently he slipped away, his mind already racing with ways to counter this unexpected development. As he made his way out of the restaurant, he pulled out his phone, quickly dialing a number. "It's me," he said as soon as the call connected. "We have a problem. The old man knows, and he's making a move. We need to accelerate our timeline." As David outlined the new plan to his co-conspirator, a familiar voice responded on the other end. Samantha, her voice filled with determination, said, "I'm on it. I'll do whatever it takes to make this happen." Back in the office, Liam and Henry continued to work late into the night, unaware of the storm gathering on the horizon. As they finalized the details of Liam's trip to New York, Henry paused, a wistful look crossing his face. "You know, son," he said softly, "I've always been proud of you. But seeing you step up like this, in our family's darkest hour, it reminds me of why I started all this in the first place." Liam felt a lump form in his throat. "Thanks, Dad. I won't let you down." As they prepared to leave, a commotion from the restaurant floor caught their attention. Rushing out, they found Emily collapsed on the ground, her breath coming in short, painful gasps. "Emily!" Liam cried, dropping to his knees beside his sister. Henry was already on the phone, calling for an ambulance. As they waited for help to arrive, Liam held Emily's hand, whispering words of encouragement. He could feel her pulse weak and erratic under his fingers. In that moment, the true stakes of their fight became crystal clear. This wasn't just about saving a business or a legacy, it was about saving their family. The next few days passed in a blur of hospital corridors and hushed conversations with doctors. Emily's condition had stabilized, but it was clear that she needed the surgery sooner rather than later. The cost, already daunting, now seemed insurmountable. As Liam prepared for his trip to New York, he felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Everything, Emily's life, the family business, their entire future, hinged on his ability to secure this deal. The night before his departure, Liam found himself standing in Emily's hospital room. His sister lay sleeping, looking small and fragile amidst the tangle of tubes and wires. He took her hand gently, careful not to disturb her. "I'm going to fix this," Emmy whispered. "I promise. Just hang in there a little longer." As he turned to leave, he nearly collided with Samantha, who was standing in the doorway. For a moment they stared at each other in shocked silence. "Liam," Samantha said, her voice barely above a whisper. I heard about Emily. I'm so sorry." Liam felt a jumble of emotions: anger, hurt, and a lingering affection that he couldn't quite shake. "What are you doing here, Sam?" Samantha hesitated, her eyes darting to Emily's sleeping form. "I wanted to see if there was anything I could do to help. David told me about the situation and I—" "David told you?" Liam interrupted, his voice sharp. "What exactly did he tell you, Sam? Did he mention that he's trying to take over our family business while we're dealing with this crisis?" Samantha's eyes widened in surprise. "What? No, he said he was trying to help. That he had a plan to save Lael Pook and get Emily the treatment she needs." Liam laughed bitterly. "Is that what he told you? Sam, David is my uncle. He's been planning this takeover for years. He's using you, just like he's trying to use our family's vulnerability." The color drained from Samantha's face as the implications of Liam's words sank in. I didn't know. Liam, you have to believe me, I would never." "Never what, Sam?" Liam asked, his voice tired. "Never conspire to take everything my family has built? Never use our relationship for your own gain? Because from where I'm standing, that's exactly what you've been doing from the start." Tears welled up in Samantha's eyes. "That's not fair. I made mistakes, yes, but I never meant to hurt you or your family. I care about you, Liam. I care about Emily." For a moment, Liam allowed himself to see the genuine pain in Samantha's eyes. But the memory of her words in the park, of her quick alliance with David, hardened his heart. "If you really care," he said, his voice low and intense, "then stay away from David. And stay away from my family. We have enough to deal with without worrying about what you might do next." As they brushed past her and out of the room, Liam felt a mixture of grief and regret. He had said what needed to be said, but the pain of their broken relationship still stung. In the corridor, he nearly ran into his father, who had been standing just out of sight, listening to the exchange. "You did the right thing, son," Henry said, placing a comforting hand on Liam's shoulder. "But remember, in times like these, we often discover that people are more complex than we give them credit for. Don't close your heart entirely. Sometimes redemption comes from unexpected places." Liam nodded, too emotionally drained to argue. As they walked together towards the hospital exit, he steeled himself for the challenges ahead. New York awaited, and with it, the chance to save everything they held dear, whatever obstacles lay in his path. David's scheming, Samantha's uncertain loyalties, his own self-doubt. Liam was determined to overcome them all. But as he stepped out into the cool night air, Liam took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his family's hopes and fears on his shoulders. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with danger and difficult choices. But for the first time in his life, Liam felt truly ready to face whatever came his way. The facade of the rich restaurateur's son had fallen away, replaced by the determination of a man fighting for his family's future. Little did he know that the true tests of his character and the most shocking revelations were yet to come. The New York skyline loomed before Liam as his taxi weaved through the bustling streets. His mind raced with rehearsed pitches and financial projections, but his heart remained in the hospital room back home where Emily fought for her life. The weight of his family's future pressed heavily on his shoulders. As the taxi pulled up to a towering skyscraper, Liam took a deep breath, straightening his tie. This meeting with Julian Frost, his father's old friend and potential investor, could change everything. He stepped into the gleaming lobby, his reflection in the polished marble floors a reminder of how far he'd come from the boy who once pretended to be something he wasn't. "Mr. Callahan." A sleek receptionist greeted him. "Mr. Frost is expecting you." Please follow me." The elevator ride to the top floor seemed to last an eternity. When the doors finally opened, Liam found himself face to face with Julian Frost, a silver-haired man with piercing blue eyes and an enigmatic smile. "Ah, young Callahan," Julian said, extending his hand. "You're the spitting image of your father at your age. Come, let's talk business." For the next 2 hours, Liam presented his family's vision for Lale Pook's expansion, his passion and determination shining through. Julian listened intently, his expression unreadable. As Liam concluded his pitch, Julian leaned back in his chair, studying him. "It's an ambitious plan, Liam. Tell me, why now? Your father has resisted expansion for years. What's changed?" Liam hesitated, weighing his words carefully. "Mr. Frost, I'll be honest with you. My sister is gravely ill. The medical bills are astronomical. And there's someone trying to take advantage of our vulnerability to seize control of Lale Pook." Julian's eyebrows raised slightly. "I see. And this someone, I assume, is David." Liam's shock must have been evident on his face because Julian chuckled softly. "Your father and I go way back, Liam. I know all about his brother and their complicated history." Leaning forward, Julian's expression turned serious. "What you're proposing is risky, especially given your current circumstances. But I've always believed in your father's vision, and I see that same spark in you. I'm willing to invest, but on one condition." "Anything," Liam said, hope surging within him. "But on to controlling stake in the new restaurant group," Julian stated firmly. 49% isn't enough. I need 51%. Liam felt as if the floor had dropped out from beneath him, but that would mean my family would lose control of Lale Pook. Julian nodded solemnly. "It's a lot to ask, I know. But consider this, with my resources and connections, we could expand Lale Pook beyond your wildest dreams. Your sister would get the best medical care money can buy, and you'd be protected from any hostile takeover attempts." As Liam grappled with the implications of Julian's offer, his phone buzzed insistently. It was a text from his father, emergency at the restaurant. David making his move. Come home, NOO. Panic rose in Liam's throat. "Mr. Frost, I need some time to think about this. And I need to get back to Chicago immediately. There's an urgent situation at the restaurant." Julian nodded understandingly, "Of course. Take my private jet, it'll get you faster than any commercial flight. And Liam, whatever you decide, remember that sometimes, to save what we love, we have to be willing to let go of control." The flight back to Chicago was a blur of conflicting emotions and frantic phone calls. By the time Liam burst through the doors of Lale Pook, he was prepared for the worst. For what he wasn't prepared for was the scene that greeted him. David stood at the center of the restaurant, surrounded by a group of stern-looking men in suits. Henry was there too, his face a mask of barely contained fury, and to Liam's shock, Samantha was standing beside David, looking torn and conflicted. "Ah, the prodigal son returns," David sneered as Liam approached, just in time to see the changing of the guard. "What's going on here?" Liam demanded, looking between his father and David. Henry's voice was tight with anger as he explained, "Your uncle here has called an emergency board meeting. He claims to have enough proxy votes to force a sale of Lale Pook to his investment group." David's smirk widened. "It's nothing personal, nephew. Just business. Your father's mismanagement and your sister's unfortunate condition have left this company vulnerable. I'm simply stepping in to save it from ruin." Liam's mind raced. He thought of Julian's offer, of the controlling stake that could protect them from this very scenario. But the thought of giving up his family's legacy, the restaurant his father had built from nothing, was almost unbearable. "You can't do this," Liam said, his voice low and dangerous. "This restaurant is our life's work. Our legacy." "Legacy?" David scoffed. "Wake up, boy. This isn't about legacy, it's about survival. Your father's outdated sentimentality has no place in modern business." As the argument escalated, Samantha suddenly stepped forward, her voice cutting through the tension. "Stop it, all of you. This isn't right and you know it, David." David's eyes narrowed. "Careful, Samantha. Remember where your loyalties lie." But Samantha stood her ground. "My loyalties lie with the truth, and the truth is you manipulated me. I used my ambition and my feelings for Liam to further your own agenda." She turned to Liam, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. "Liam, I'm so sorry. I didn't know the full extent of David's plans. I thought I was helping to save Lael Pook, not destroy it." For a moment the room fell silent. Liam looked at Samantha, seeing for the first time the genuine remorse in her eyes. Then, slowly, he turned to face David. "You want to talk business, Uncle? Fine, let's talk business." Liam's voice was steady, filled with a newfound confidence. "I've just come from a meeting with Julian Frost. He's prepared to invest in Lael Pook's expansion, to make us a national brand." David's smirk faltered slightly. "You're bluffing. Frost has been refusing to invest for years." "Things change," Liam countered. "People change. I've realized that recently." He glanced briefly at Samantha before continuing. "Mr. Frost is offering us the capital we need to expand and to cover Emily's medical expenses. His only condition is a controlling stake in the new restaurant group." Henry's sharp intake of breath was audible in the tense silence that followed. "Liam's son, are you sure about this?" Liam nodded solemnly. "It's our best option, Dad. With Frost's backing, we can fight off any hostile takeover attempts. We can save Emily, and we can build something even greater than we imagined." David's face had turned an ugly shade of red. "This is ridiculous. You can't seriously be considering giving up control of your family business to an outsider. Better an outsider who believes in our vision than a family member who'd destroy everything we've built," Henry said, his voice filled with a mixture of sadness and resolve. As the reality of the situation sank in, David's composure cracked. "You can't do this. I've worked too hard, waited too long." But his protests fell on deaf ears. The board members, sensing the shift in power, began to distance themselves from David. Samantha moved to stand beside Liam, her hand finding his in a gesture of support. But in the midst of the chaos, Liam's phone rang. It was the hospital. Emily had taken a turn for the worse. They needed to make a decision about her surgery immediately. As Liam relayed the news to his father, a hush fell over the room. Even David seemed sobered by the gravity of the situation. Henry looked at his son, years of pride and love shining in his eyes. "Make the call, Liam. Tell Frost we accept his offer. It's time to secure our future and save your sister." As Liam stepped away to make the most important phone call of his life, he felt a profound sense of change. The boy who had once hidden behind a facade of wealth was gone. In his place stood a man ready to face the challenges ahead, to fight for his family and their legacy, no matter the cost. The next few hours passed in a whirlwind of legal documents, hurried signatures, and tense negotiations. By the time the dust settled, Lael Pook was on the brink of a new era. Julian Frost's investment was secured, David was ousted from the company, and Emily was being prepped for her life-saving surgery. As Liam stood by his sister's hospital bed, holding her hand as she was wheeled into the operating room, he felt a mix of fear and hope. Samantha stood beside him, her presence a silent support. "I know I have a lot to make up for," she said softly, "but if you'll let me, I want to help. Not for any personal gain, but because it's the right thing to do." Liam looked at her, seeing past the ambition and the mistakes to the person he had fallen in love with. "It won't be easy," he warned. "We have a long road ahead of us." Samantha nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "I'm ready for it, all of it." As they watched Emily disappear behind the operating room doors, Liam felt a sense of peace wash over him. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew they would face them together as a family, stronger and more united than ever before. Her legacy of Lael Pook was changing, evolving into something new and unexpected. But at its heart, it remained what it had always been, a testament to the power of love, perseverance, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The days following Emily's surgery were a blur of hospital corridors, hushed conversations, and cautious optimism. Liam found himself in a constant state of motion, dividing his time between the hospital and Lale Pook, where the effects of Julian Frost's investment were already beginning to take shape. As Emily's condition slowly improved, Liam felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. Her sight of colour returning to his sister's cheeks, the sound of her laughter echoing through the hospital room, these were the rewards that made all the struggles worthwhile. One afternoon, as Liam sat by Emily's bedside, going over some paperwork for the restaurant, Henry entered the room with a thoughtful expression on his face. "Son," he began, pulling up a chair, "I think it's time we had a talk about the future." Liam set aside his papers, giving his father his full attention. There was something in Henry's tone that suggested this wasn't just another conversation about business strategy. Henry took a deep breath before continuing. "I'm proud of you, Liam. The way you've handled everything, the crisis with Emily, David's attempted takeover, the deal with Julian Frost, you've shown a level of maturity and leadership that I always hoped to see in you." Liam felt a warmth spreading through his chest at his father's words. "Thanks, Dad. That means a lot." "I've been thinking," Henry went on, his eyes distant, "about the future of Lale Pook, about my role in it, and I've come to a decision." He paused, meeting Liam's gaze. "And I want you to take over as CEO." For a moment, Liam was sure he had misheard. "What, Dad? No, you can't step down. Lale Pook is your life's work." Henry smiled, a mixture of pride and nostalgia in his eyes. "It is, and that's exactly why it's time for me to step back. Lale Pook needs new blood, new ideas to grow and thrive in this changing landscape. You've proven you're ready for this, son." As the implications of his father's words sank in, Liam felt a complex mix of emotions, excitement, fear, and a profound sense of responsibility. "But what about you? What will you do?" Henry's smile widened. "Oh, I'll still be around. Chairman of the board, advisor, chief taster, whatever you need me to be. But it's time for me to focus on other things. Your mother and I have been talking about traveling, seeing the world beyond the walls of our restaurant." Liam nodded slowly, a lump forming in his throat. I don't know what to say, Dad. It's an honor, but it's also terrifying." "That's how you know it's worth doing," Henry said, placing a hand on Liam's shoulder. "You'll make mistakes, face challenges you never anticipated, but I have faith in you, son. You'll lead Lale Pook into a new era, one that honors our past while embracing the future." As father and son sat there, the beeping of Emily's monitors a steady backdrop to their conversation, Liam felt a shift within himself. The last vestige of the insecure young man who had hidden behind a facade of wealth fell away. In its place stood a leader ready to take on the responsibilities of preserving and growing his family's legacy. The following weeks were a whirlwind of activity. As Emily grew stronger, Liam threw himself into preparing for his new role. He worked closely with Julian Frost, learning the intricacies of running a larger restaurant group. He met with chefs, designers, and marketing teams, all focused on expanding Lale Pook's reach while maintaining its core values. Through it all, Samantha stood by his side. True to her word, she had dedicated herself to making amends, working tirelessly to support Liam and earn back the trust she had lost. The business acumen and strategic thinking proved invaluable as they navigated the challenges of expansion. One evening, as they sat in Liam's office reviewing plans for the first new Lale Pook location, Samantha paused, a contemplative look on her face. "Liam," she said softly, "I want you to know how grateful I am for this second chance. I know I hurt you, betrayed your trust, but working alongside you, seeing your passion and dedication, it's reminded me of why I fell in love with you in the first place." Liam looked up from the papers spread across his desk, studying Samantha's face. He saw genuine remorse there, but also determination and hope. "Sam," he began, choosing his words carefully, "I won't lie and say that what happened didn't hurt. It did. But these past few weeks, seeing how hard you've worked, how committed you've been to making things right, it's meant a lot to me." He reached across the desk, taking her hand in his. We've both grown a lot through this experience. Maybe we needed to go through all of this to become the people we are now. People who can truly appreciate and support each other. Samantha's eyes glistened with unshed tears as she squeezed Liam's hand. Does this mean are we? Liam smiled, a warmth spreading through his chest. I think it means we're ready to start over. To build something real this time, based on honesty and mutual respect. As they leaned in, sharing a tender kiss that held the promise of a new beginning, Liam felt a sense of completeness. The challenges they had faced, the obstacles they had overcome, all of it had led to this moment. In the story of Lael Pook was far from over. There would be new challenges to face, new heights to reach. But with his family by his side, Emily on the road to recovery, and Samantha as his partner in both life and business, Liam felt ready for whatever the future might hold. As he looked out the window at the bustling restaurant below, Liam couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement for the journey ahead. The legacy of Lael Pook would continue, evolving and growing, touching lives and bringing people together through the universal language of good food and warm hospitality. And so, dear reader, as we come to the end of this chapter in the Callahan family's story, we're reminded that life, like a well-crafted meal, is full of complex flavors, unexpected combinations, and moments that linger long after the last bite. It's a journey of growth, of learning, of falling and getting back up again. We hope you've enjoyed this tale of love, of ambition, family, and redemption. If you found yourself moved by the Callan's journey, if you've laughed, cried, or felt inspired along the way, we'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment with the number 1 to let us know you've enjoyed this story and would like to hear more like it. Your feedback is the secret ingredient that fuels our passion for storytelling. After all, every great story, like every great restaurant, thrives on the love and support of its patrons. So pull up a chair, join our table, and let's continue to savor the rich, complex flavors of life's grand narrative together. As the months passed, Lael Pook underwent a transformation that was nothing short of remarkable. Under Liam's leadership, and with Julian Frost's backing, the restaurant began to expand its reach beyond Chicago. New locations sprouted up in New York, Los Angeles, and even London, each maintaining the core values and quality that had made the original Lael Pook a culinary landmark. Liam found himself thriving in his new role as CEO. The challenges were constant, but he met each one with a determination and creativity that impressed even the most skeptical board members. He had come a long way from the young man who once hid behind a facade of wealth, now standing confidently at the helm of a growing restaurant empire. One crisp autumn evening, as Liam was preparing to leave the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Samantha. "Meet me at the original Lael Pook. I have a surprise for you." Intrigued, Liam made his way to the restaurant where it all began. As he stepped through the doors, he was struck by a wave of nostalgia. The familiar sense of satining garlic and freshly baked bread filled the air, transporting him back to his childhood. Samantha was waiting for him at their usual table, a mysterious smile playing on her lips. "Close your eyes," she instructed as he approached. Liam complied, his curiosity piqued. He heard the rustle of paper, then Samantha's voice, soft and excited. "Okay, open them." For him on the table lay a series of architectural drawings and design concepts. Liam's eyes widened as he realized what he was looking at. "Sam, is this?" Samantha nodded, her eyes shining. "It's a plan for a culinary school. Right here in Chicago, affiliated with Lael Pook. The place where aspiring chefs can learn not just cooking techniques, but the values that have made this restaurant so special." Liam leafed through the plans, his excitement growing with each page. The proposed school would be state-of-the-art with classrooms, professional kitchens, and even a small restaurant where students could gain real-world experience. "This is incredible," Liam breathed. "But how?" "I've been working on it for months," Samantha explained, "talking to educators, chefs, designers. I wanted it to be perfect before I showed you." Liam looked up at her, overwhelmed by the thought and effort she'd put into this project. Sam, I don't know what to say. It's beyond anything I could have imagined. Samantha reached across the table, taking his hand in hers. You once told me that Lael Pook was about more than just serving food. It was about creating a legacy, nurturing talent, giving back to the community. And I thought this would be a perfect way to honor that vision. As Liam absorbed the magnitude of what Samantha was proposing, he felt a surge of emotions. Pride in how far they had come, both personally and professionally. Gratitude for her unwavering support and innovative thinking. And love, a deep, abiding love that had weathered storms and emerged stronger. There's more, Samantha said, her voice softening. She pulled out one more document from her folder. But I've been in touch with some non-profit organizations. We can set up a scholarship program for underprivileged youth who want to pursue a career in culinary arts. Liam felt a lump form in his throat as he thought of his own journey, of the opportunities he had been given. Sam, it's perfect. It's exactly what Lael Pook should be doing. As they sat there discussing the details of the project, Liam was struck by how far they had come. The woman before him was not the same Samantha who had once been blinded by ambition and the allure of wealth. She had grown just as he had into someone who understood the true value of legacy and community. Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Henry and Emily, who had been secretly waiting in the kitchen. Emily, now fully recovered and glowing with health, rushed to hug her brother. "Surprise," she exclaimed. "We couldn't let you two have all the fun planning the future of Lael Pook without us." Henry's eyes twinkled with pride as he surveyed the plans spread out on the table. A culinary school, eh? Now that's a legacy worth building. As the family gathered around the table, each adding their ideas and insights to the project, Liam felt a profound sense of rightness. This was what Lael Pook had always been meant to be, not just a restaurant, but a nurturing ground for talent, a place where passion for food could transform lives. The evening wore on, filled with laughter, brainstorming, and shared dreams for the future. As they were about to leave, Henry pulled Liam aside. "Son," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "I want you to know how proud I am of you. Not just for the success you've brought to Lael Pook, but for the man you've become. You've taken our family's legacy and elevated it beyond anything I could have imagined." Liam felt tears prick at his eyes as he embraced his father. "I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. Everything I am, everything I've achieved, it's because of the foundation you built." As they walked out of the restaurant together, Liam and Samantha hand in hand, Henry with his arm around Emily, they paused to look back at the familiar facade of Lael Pook. A sign above the door seemed to glow in the twilight, a beacon of all they had embraced, and all that was yet to come. Hanj squeezed Samantha's hand, a wave of excitement washing over him as he thought about the future they were building together. The culinary school was just the beginning. With their combined vision and the support of their family, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As they drove home, Liam's mind was already racing with new ideas. Community outreach programs, sustainability initiatives, mentorship opportunities for young chefs, the possibilities were endless. He glanced at Samantha, saw the same excitement reflected in her eyes, and knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The story of Lael Pook was far from over. In fact, it felt like a new chapter was just beginning, one filled with promise, purpose, and the power to change lives through the universal language of food. As Liam drifted off to sleep that night, his dreams were filled with images of bustling kitchens, eager students, and the savory aromas of culinary creation. The legacy of Lael Pook would live on, not just in the restaurants that bore its name, but in the lives it touched, the talents it nurtured, and the community it helped to build. And for Liam, Samantha, and the entire Callahan family, that was the most satisfying success of all. 5 years had passed since the inception of the Lael Pook Culinary Institute, and the day of its first graduation ceremony had finally arrived. The air was thick with excitement and the tantalizing aromas of gourmet dishes prepared by the graduating class. Liam stood at the podium, looking out over the sea of eager faces. Students in crisp white chef's uniforms sat alongside proud family members, all waiting with bated breath for the ceremony to begin. In the front row, Samantha beamed up at him, her hand resting protectively over her swollen belly. Their first child was due in just a few months, adding another layer of joy to this momentous occasion. "Welcome everyone," Liam began, his voice steady and warm. "Today we celebrate not just the accomplishments of our inaugural class, but the realization of a dream that has been generations in the making." As he spoke, Liam's mind wandered back to the journey that had brought them to this point. The expansion of Lale Pook had been a resounding success, with restaurants now thriving in major cities across the globe. But it was this institute, this investment in the future of culinary arts, that truly embodied the spirit of what his family had built. "When my father opened the first Lale Pook," Liam continued, "he had a vision of creating more than just a restaurant. He wanted to create a place where passion for food could transform lives. Today, as I look at all of you, I see that vision realized in ways he could never have imagined." From his seat in the audience, Henry wiped a tear from his eye, his chest swelling with pride. Beside him, Emily squeezed his hand, her own eyes glistening with emotion. Liam went on to highlight some of the Institute's achievements. The scholarship program, spearheaded by Samantha, had provided opportunities for underprivileged youth to pursue their culinary dreams. The Sustainable Farming Initiative had not only reduced the restaurant's carbon footprint, but had also become a model for eco-friendly practices in the industry. As he concluded his speech and the graduates began to receive their diplomas, Liam felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned to find David standing there, looking older and surprisingly humble. "Uncle David," Liam said, surprise evident in his voice. I didn't know you were here." David shifted uncomfortably. "I wasn't sure I'd be welcome, but I needed to see this. To see what you've built." For a moment, the two men stood in awkward silence, years of hurt and resentment hanging between them. Then, slowly, David extended his hand. "I owe you an apology, Liam, many apologies, in fact. What you've done here with Lale Pook, with this institute, it's extraordinary. I was wrong about you, about your father, about everything." Liam hesitated for a moment before taking his uncle's hand. "Thank you, Uncle David. That means a lot." As they shook hands, Liam felt a weight lift from his shoulders, a tension he hadn't even realized he'd been carrying. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur of applause, tears and laughter. As the new graduates mingled with their families and potential employers, Liam found himself drawn into conversation after conversation, each one reinforcing the impact of what they had created. One young graduate, a former scholarship recipient named Maria, approached Liam with tears in her eyes. "And Mr. Callahan, I just wanted to thank you. Without this institute, without the opportunity you provided, I would never have been able to pursue my dreams. You've changed my life." Liam felt a lump form in his throat as he listened to Maria's story. This was why they had built the institute, why they had worked so hard to create opportunities for others. But it wasn't just about cooking, it was about transformation, about giving people the tools to forge their own paths. As the evening wound down, Liam found a quiet moment with Samantha. They stood on the balcony overlooking the city, the lights of Chicago twinkling like stars beneath them. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Samantha mused, leaning into Liam's embrace. Liam shook his head, a soft smile playing on his lips. "Sometimes it feels like a dream. But then I look at you, at all of this, and I know it's real." Samantha turned to face him, her eyes shining with love and excitement. "And just think, this is only the beginning. With the new Sustainable Agriculture Program we're launching next year, and the plans for the International Exchange Program." Liam laughed, placing a gentle kiss on her forehead. "Always looking to the future, aren't you?" "Someone has to," Samantha teased. "Besides, with this little one on the way, I can't help but think about what kind of world we're building for them." As if on cue, the baby kicked, causing both of them to laugh. Liam placed his hand on Samantha's belly, marveling at the life growing within. "And you know," he said softly, My dad once told me that the true measure of success isn't in what you achieve for yourself, but in what you make possible for others. Looking at everything that happened today, I think I finally understand what he meant. Samantha nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Your father is a wise man, and you, Liam Callahan, are every bit his son. As they stood there, overlooking the city and the future they were building together, Liam felt a profound sense of peace. The road hadn't always been easy, and there would undoubtedly be challenges ahead. But with Samantha by his side, their family supporting them, and the legacy of Lael Pook to guide them, he knew they could face anything. The sound of laughter drifted up from the celebration below, a reminder of the lives they were touching, the dreams they were helping to realize. Liam thought of his own journey, of the insecure young man he had once been, pretending to be something he wasn't. That version of himself seemed like a distant memory now, replaced by a man who had found his true calling in nurturing others' talents and passions. As the night drew to a close and the last of the guests departed, Liam took one final look around the institute. Her gleaming kitchens, state-of-the-art classrooms, and walls adorned with inspiring culinary quotes all stood as a testament to what could be achieved with vision, hard work, and a commitment to something greater than oneself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities to grow and evolve. But for now, Liam was content to savor this moment, to bask in the warmth of what they had accomplished and the bright future that lay ahead. As he turned off the lights and locked the doors, Liam felt a renewed sense of purpose. The legacy of Lael Pook was no longer just about serving exquisite meals or running successful restaurants. It was about nurturing talent, fostering creativity, and using the power of food to bring people together and change lives. And that, Liam realized, was the most satisfying dish of all. The years flew by, each one bringing new challenges and triumphs for the Callahan family and the ever-expanding Lael Pook empire. As Liam and Samantha's daughter, Sophia, celebrated her 5th birthday, the family gathered at the original Lael Pook restaurant for a private party that doubled as a reflection on their journey. The once small dining room had been transformed for the occasion, festooned with balloons and streamers in Sophia's favorite colors. At the center of it all stood a magnificent cake, a culinary masterpiece created by the Institute's star pupils under Henry's watchful eye. As Sophia giggled and played with her cousins, Emily's twin boys, Liam found himself drawn into conversation with his father. Henry, now in his 70s but still sharp as ever, gazed around the room with a mixture of pride and nostalgia. You know, son, Henry began, his voice soft with memory, when I first opened this place, I never could have imagined of all of this. He gestured to the bustling room, filled with family friends and key members of the Lael Pook team. You've taken what I started and turned it into something truly extraordinary. Liam felt a lump form in his throat. I couldn't have done it without you, Dad. Everything I've achieved, it's because of the foundation you built. Henry shook his head, a twinkle in his eye. Oh, I may have laid the first brick, but you're the one who built the castle, Liam. And not just a castle, an entire kingdom. As if to underscore Henry's point, David approached them, a tablet in hand. Sorry to interrupt, he said, the formality in his voice a reminder of the still healing relationship between him and the family. But I thought you'd want to see this right away. He handed the tablet to Liam, who let out a low whistle as he read the screen. Is this confirmed? He asked, his voice filled with disbelief. David nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. Just came through. The Michelin Guide has awarded stars to 5 of our international locations. And the New York restaurant, 3 stars. The news spread quickly through the room, prompting a spontaneous round of applause and a flurry of congratulations. Samantha made her way to Liam's side, slipping her arm around his waist. Looks like we have even more to celebrate, she said, her eyes shining with pride. As the party continued, Liam found himself reflecting on the long road that had led them here. The expansion of Lael Pook had not been without its challenges. There had been setbacks, a less than stellar review of their London location, a brief PR crisis when a sous chef had gone rogue on social media, but they had weathered each storm, emerging stronger and more unified. The Culinary Institute had flourished beyond their wildest dreams. Its graduates were now sought after by top restaurants around the world, and the scholarship program had expanded to include international students. The Sustainable Agriculture Initiative had grown into a full-fledged research center, partnering with universities to develop innovative farming techniques. But perhaps most gratifying of all was the impact they had made on countless lives. From the young chefs whose careers they had launched to the communities they had supported through various outreach programs, the ripple effects of their work seemed endless. As the evening wore on, Liam found himself drawn to a quiet corner of the restaurant. He stood before a wall of photographs, a visual timeline of Lael Pook's history. There was his father on opening night, young and nervous but beaming with pride. Liam himself as a teenager, awkwardly posing in his first chef's uniform. The family gathered around Emily's hospital bed after her successful surgery, the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Culinary Institute. And there, right in the center, was a photo from his ill-fated dinner with Samantha all those years ago. The night everything had changed, Liam smiled ruefully at the memory, marveling at how a moment that had seemed like the end of everything had actually been the beginning. "Penny for your thoughts," Samantha's voice drew him from his reverie. She handed him a glass of champagne, clinking hers against it in a silent toast. "It's just thinking about how far we've come," Liam replied, wrapping an arm around her shoulders, "and how differently things could have turned out." Then Samantha nodded, her gaze lingering on the old photograph. "We were so young, so caught up in our own ambitions. Who would have thought we'd end up here?" Their moment of reflection was interrupted by a tugging at Liam's pant leg. They looked down to see Sophia, her face smeared with frosting and her eyes wide with excitement. "Daddy, Mummy, come quick," she exclaimed. "Grandpa says it's time for a special announcement." Exchanging curious glances, Liam and Samantha allowed their daughter to lead them back to the main party. Henry stood in the center of the room, looking uncharacteristically nervous as he cleared his throat to address the gathering. "Family, friends, colleagues," he began, his voice wavering slightly. "As you know, Lael Pook has been my life's work. But as the years have gone by, I've come to realize that it's become so much more than that. It's become our family's legacy, a force for good in the world." He paused, his eyes misting over as he looked at Liam. "Son, when I handed over the reins to you, I knew you'd do great things. But you've exceeded every expectation, every dream I ever had for this place." Liam felt Samantha squeeze his hand as Henry continued. "That's why I've made a decision. I'm establishing the Lael Pook Foundation. It will be dedicated to furthering culinary education, supporting sustainable food practices, and using the power of food to bring about positive change in communities around the world." A hush fell over the room as Henry's words sank in. Then slowly applause began to build, growing into a thunderous ovation. Liam felt tears pricking at his eyes as he moved to embrace his father. "Dad, this is incredible," he managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. Henry smiled, a lifetime of wisdom and love in his eyes. "It's time, Liam. Time for Lael Pook to be more than just a name on a restaurant or a school. It's time for it to be a beacon of hope, a catalyst for change." As the party resumed, now with renewed energy and purpose, Liam found himself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what lay ahead. The foundation would open up new avenues for them to make a difference, to touch even more lives. Later that night, as Liam tucked an exhausted Sophia into bed, he felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over him. For his family, for the opportunities he'd been given, for the chance to be part of something greater than himself. "Daddy," Sophia mumbled sleepily, "when I grow up, can I be like you and run Lael Pook?" Liam smiled, brushing a strand of hair from his daughter's forehead. "You can be anything you want to be, sweetheart. But remember, the most important thing isn't running a restaurant or winning awards. It's using what you have to make the world a little bit better." As Sophia drifted off to sleep, Liam stood in the doorway, watching her peaceful face. The future stretched out before them, full of possibilities and challenges yet unknown. But with the legacy of Lael Pook as their guide and the strength of their family behind them, Liam knew they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The story of Lael Pook was far from over. In fact, it felt like a new chapter was just beginning, one that would reach far beyond the walls of any restaurant, touching lives and changing the world, one meal at a time. As we reflect on the journey of the Callahan family and the legacy of Lael Pook, we're reminded that life, like a perfectly crafted dish, is a blend of unexpected ingredients, challenges that test our resolve, and moments of sweetness that linger long after they've passed. This story touches the very core of what it means to be human, to dream, to struggle, to love and to grow. It reminds us that our greatest strengths often emerge from our deepest vulnerabilities, and that the bonds of family and love can withstand the harshest storms. Like Liam, we all face moments when we must choose between hiding behind a facade and embracing our true selves. His journey teaches us that authenticity, though often difficult, is the key to unlocking our full potential and building meaningful connections with others. Samantha's transformation shows us that it's never too late to change, to right our wrongs, and to redirect our ambitions towards a greater purpose. Her story is a powerful reminder that true fulfillment comes not from personal gain, but from using our talents to uplift others. Henry's unwavering love and guidance remind us of the profound impact a supportive family can have. His decision to establish the Lael Pook Foundation serves as a call to action for all of us to consider how we can use our own successes to create lasting, positive change in the world. In the end, the story of Lael Pook is not just about a restaurant or a culinary empire. It's about the power of food to bring people together, to heal wounds, to create opportunities, and to nourish not just bodies, but souls. As you reflect on this tale, ask yourself, what is your Lael Pook? What legacy are you building? How can you use your own unique gifts to make the world a little bit better? Remember, every meal shared, every hand extended in help, every moment of genuine connection. These are the ingredients of a life well lived. Like the Callahans, may we all find the courage to face our challenges, the wisdom to learn from our mistakes, and the compassion to use our success in service of others. In doing so, we might just discover that the most satisfying achievement of all is not what we gain for ourselves, but what we make possible for others. That, dear readers, is the true essence of a life that, like the perfect meal, leaves us feeling nourished, grateful, and deeply satisfied. Dear listeners, we're truly grateful for your time and attention in sharing this journey with the Callahan family and the world of Lael Pook. When your engagement is the secret ingredient that makes our storytelling truly special. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings about this tale. Your feedback isn't just appreciated, it's the driving force behind our creative process, inspiring us to craft even more compelling stories for you. If this story resonated with you, touched your heart, or simply entertained you, we invite you to leave a comment with the number 1. It's a simple way to let us know you enjoyed the experience. Curious about what might happen next in the Lael Pook saga? Eager to see how the characters continue to grow and face new challenges? If you're hungry for a second helping of this story, please leave a comment with the number 2. Your interest could be the spark that ignites the next chapter. Of course, if there were aspects of the story you didn't quite agree with or moments that didn't sit right with you, we welcome your honest feedback. Your perspective helps us improve and refine our storytelling. Please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Lastly, if you've enjoyed this journey and want to ensure you don't miss out on future stories, consider subscribing to our channel. Your subscription is more than just a click. It's a show of support for our team and a vote of confidence in the stories we create. So remember, every great story is a collaboration between the storyteller and the audience. Your engagement, whether through comments, likes, or subscriptions, is what keeps our creative fires burning bright. Thank you for being part of our storytelling family. We can't wait to embark on the next adventure with you.